Canberra. Senator, thanks for joining us. You've been following this case very closely. Your reaction to the decision?
Well, it's thrown a strange kink into the process that I don't think anybody saw coming, including, I guess, his legal counsel, that there's now 2 more weeks of legal limbo while they deal with the fact that the judges appear to have introduced arguments around interpretation of the Vienna Conventions that weren't litigated, that weren't actually argued. So another couple of weeks of limbo, but I suspect your other commentators are right. He's on his way to Sweden unless something very unusual happens from here.
And do you think, as others think, that he is eventually on his way to the US?
I think that's the material risk. I think if you take a look at, again, the Stratfor emails that I think have been mentioned earlier in your program, the strategy there has been to shop him through one legal jurisdiction after another, Mr. Assange and his allies, and just keep them, clagged up in legal processes and distractions so that they can't run the publishing organisation. Now, that may or may not be what's going on in Sweden at the moment, but it's simply paralysed the organisation and the work of WikiLeaks, as has the financial blockade. In the background, of course, is this potential sealed indictment by the US Department of Justice. I had a run-in with the Foreign Minister in an Estimates Committee hearing earlier today to try and get on the record whether the Australian government knows if such an indictment exists, whether they've tried to find out, whether they've asked the United States government, and the answers are very coy, they're very carefully worded. There's no evidence. In other words, there's nothing written down. I suggest Peter Hartcher's interpretation is correct. This is happening at an interdepartmental level with winks and nudges, and there's nothing on paper. But I think that's the agenda.
Has the Foreign Minister or any member of the government asked for any information into relation whether there's a sealed indictment to extradite Julian Assange?
I think eventually today I managed to extract that yes, those questions have been put, those arguments have been had, or those inquiries have been made, and then it gets very coy and the answers get very evasive and the language becomes very careful about not being in possession of any evidence of such an indictment, and no further disclosure of what those discussions revealed. I think the Australian government has been extremely weak, and they need to decide whether their allegiances are with Washington or with the Australian public, which is, as somebody's already said, actually very strongly in support of the work of Julian and his colleagues.
Senator Ludlam, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks, Steve.
And that's all for this special extended edition of The Drum. If you've just joined us, the decision went against Julian Assange 5-2 in the Supreme Court. He is due to be extradited to Sweden some stage soon, though he does seem to have a stay of execution of about 14 days, while his lawyers analyse a particular reference to the Vienna Convention in that decision. Thanks very much to our panel tonight, Andrew Fowler, Cara Groner and Peter Hutch, and thanks very much to Chris Warren for joining us as well. You can check out The Drum website at abc.net.au/The Drum, and you can join us the same time tomorrow night. See you then.